All right, well, good afternoon or good morning, wherever you may be. It's June 26th, and this is the Backdrop Status Update. Looks like this week I know for sure Jen Lampton's not going to make it, and most of our regulars have checked in and said they won't be here either. So right now it's just me. So, so this meeting will probably be more like an update rather than back and forth. But if anybody is out there watching and is interested in joining the meeting, it's happening right now. I'm going to go ahead and start working through our agenda. As always, we start these meetings with an overview of Backdrop's goals and purposes, which are that we're aiming to make a continuous version of Drupal, basically the next version of Drupal that will still be largely compatible with Drupal 7, making it so that all of the existing sites out there, all of the people who have done a large amount of investment in Drupal 7, have a platform that they can move to without needing to rewrite their entire site. So Backdrop aims to provide Drupal 8 comparable features on a Drupal 7-like architecture, getting new functionality out there in the world, while sticking with an architecture that people are already familiar with. Just one second. Okay, here we go. So let's see. We're trying to simplify some existing systems. We're trying to reduce the number of Drupalisms and make it so that people can onboard much more easily. And we're adding new features, things that users might expect in this day and age out of a CMS. So timeline-wise, we're planning to release Backdrop 1.0 sometime this summer, which is a tight timeline. We're going to see how well that all pans out. The biggest holdups we'll get to further on in the progress report. Let's see. So going through our agenda, which is shared as a Google Doc and linked to from this once this video is published. The major projects we've got going on right now, the biggest of which is probably blocks and layouts. So blocks and layouts is something that we're trying to do in Backdrop to really differentiate ourselves from Drupal 8. We're working on rewriting the block system and making it so that blocks have context and can be used multiple times per page and can be placed in different regions per page. And each page can have its own different region. Essentially, it's like panels. It's basically a panels-like system, but with a simplified UI. So it's not so complicated and difficult to wrap your head around like panels itself is. Things with blocks and layouts, that's been my primary goal over the past couple of weeks, and it's moving along pretty well. Recently, in issue 86, you can see progress as that's moving along. We got integrated with the new dialogue system that we added a couple of months ago. Layouts and menu items can be created and saved into the configuration system. And we're just now starting on actually arranging and laying out the blocks on the page. So moving along there. It's still going to be tight to try to get that all done before the end of the summer, but we're going to keep pushing forward on it. The next major item, Views and Core. Views and Core has been in Backdrop for the last 4 or 5 months. And it's looking really good. It's largely compatible. We've converted it to use the new dialogue system as well. But there's just a couple of places where we need views to be converted in core itself. And if anybody's interested in helping with that issue, it's issue 151 in our GitHub issue queue. And it's moving along. We really just need to convert a couple of things like the administrative listings and the front page to finish up the Views and Core initiative. So the next item is configuration management. We've had the base system in place for configuration management probably longer than anything else in terms of really big changes. So we've got a lot of things converted to it already: views, image styles, contact module, a good number of variables, but we still have a bunch more of these to go. And of all the things that we're working on in Backdrop for 1.0, configuration management, getting everything converted, including like fields and content types, is really our biggest holdup for release. And so if anything needs attention, it's converting things to configuration management. I know Jen says that she's going to take the lead on that since she's completed the Drupal 7 backports or crossports. So we're pretty much wrapped up with those. So she's going to turn her attention to configuration management. So if anyone is out there and helping or interested in helping with issue 169, get in contact with Jen Lampton. She's usually in IRC, but she's out today. But next week, it'd probably be a good time to reach out to her or just post a comment on issue 169. And we would be more than happy to help anybody on board on the Backdrop to get them working on configuration management. So those are three main issues that we're hoping to complete for Backdrop 1.0, blocks and layouts, views and core, and configuration management. We've been doing a bunch of minor work as well, trying to just make sure that when Backdrop 1.0 comes out, it has all of the functionality that you would expect. Probably most important, but not particularly very difficult, is keeping up with Drupal 7. So Drupal 7 has a bunch of stuff, and they're still improving documentation on Drupal 7, fixing security issues on Drupal 7. Even though the Drupal release cycle doesn't really allow new features to be added within a single release cycle in Drupal 7, we're still making sure that we keep up with everything that happens in Drupal 7 so that when Backdrop 1.0 is released, it has all of the same security fixes and bug fixes and everything else. So we've already ported a lot, like 800 some issues from Drupal 7 over to Backdrop to make sure that we're keeping up with everything that Drupal 7 is doing. We've just now added a new security update so that we'll be up to date with the latest version of Drupal 7.27. And we've got, it looks like about 80 issues left to backport or to crossport over to Backdrop. But most of those are really minor things, fixing tests, documentation things, and things like that. So Drupal 8 backports, this is things that we've been doing to make it so that the functionality that is in Drupal 8 is also in Backdrop. And there's a lot of these, like thousands of issues that could potentially be backported. However, a huge number of those won't ever be backported to Backdrop because we're not including a lot of the conversions that make Drupal 8 difficult to move to. So all of the rewriting of various systems, moving to PSR0, the sort of dependency injectionification of things is not happening in Backdrop either, since we're sticking with the Drupal 7 architecture. So some of the areas that we're specifically focused on right now is making sure that all of the HTML5 enhancements all get moved back into Backdrop, and we're about 3/4 of the way through those. We're also making sure that the CSS re-architecting, the simplification of classes and things like that is also happening, and we're 4/5 of the way through those. And we're making it so that all of our JavaScript gets updated so that it's passing JS lint tests and updated, properly enclosed, uses the latest version of jQuery, those sorts of things. So each of those issues you can find in the Backdrop issue queue, and yeah, we're making really good progress on all of those. So let's see, some other minor projects that we're also working on. So the first one that we've got here is separating our identity from Drupal. Because Drupal owns the name and trademark of the word Drupal, Drupal in the future will come to mean something very different than what Drupal means today. As the architecture completely changes underneath it, Drupal will become something else in the future with the Drupal 8 release. And so in order to establish ourselves and make it so that we can document and have our own identity, we've started making sure that everything throughout all of Backdrop is branded as Backdrop instead of Drupal. So there's a couple of areas that we've been making real progress on this. We've updated all of the source code to replace the word Drupal with backdrop. And that includes class names and functions and variables, pretty much everything. And added a compatibility layer in there that is turned on by default that makes it so that everywhere that you used to reference Drupal, you now say backdrop. But if you still reference Drupal, that's fine. Everything will continue to work. All of the functions are wrapped, making it so that people moving from Drupal to backdrop have an easy time getting their modules initially converted and up and running in a really short amount of time. But we've gone through, we've got a really awesome logo that Darius has put together for us that you've probably seen around the interweb. And it looks great. We've got it on all of our branding pages. We've got it on our site now. And we've got it into Backdrop itself. So there's no more DrupalCon in Backdrop, which is kind of sad, but necessary, really. We don't really have any choice to continue using Drupal branding as Drupal itself changes into something else. So some other places where we're looking to differentiate ourselves is we're working on making a new admin theme, and we've got Julia working on coming up with a new style guide, and from there we'll apply that style guide onto the Backdrop administration theme. Let's see, that's just about it for separating the identity. The next things we've got here is we've got a number of user experience improvements. We're working on moving CK Editor module into core, which I did a lot of work on in the Drupal 8 cycle already. So we've already made some progress on that, kind of indirectly. Things like the dialog system and some JavaScript updates were necessary in order to put CK Editor into core in Drupal 8. And we've already got those underpinnings in place for Backdrop, but we haven't yet actually started moving forward on converting CK Editor module into a Backdrop module. So that's an issue that is a big one that we'd love to have out before the 1.0 release, and that's issue 101 in the Backdrop issue queue. Terminology updates, this is just a number of minor improvements. Since we've moved admin menu into core, the way our terminology works and lists, we could make some changes to make it so that things could be easier to find. Drupal 8 did a couple of these things as well, like changing the modules page to extend, for example. That's just the way it's listed in the menu system. With Backdrop, because we have a hierarchical menu system that has drop-downs, kind of actually unlike Drupal 8, which has a toolbar, but it's not actually a very hierarchical menu. We're likely to do things like change the top-level item of modules to extend, just like Drupal 8 did, but then leave the modules page as modules. So in the drop-down, you would select extend and then modules as the first item, making it so that it's kind of both the terms are still there, and it increases the searchability. Because we've got a search in the admin toolbar as well, we want people to be able to search for either word and make sure they can land on the right page. Let's see, the last minor issue we have is theme system cleanup. As many people know, Jen Lampton was heading up the Twig initiative in Drupal 8. We're not including Twig in Backdrop for compatibility reasons, making it so that people can continue to use their existing code, and also for performance reasons and simplicity. But theme system cleanup, we can still do a lot to make the overall theme system a lot simpler, doing things like we're trying to remove the process layer, not the pre-process layer, but the process layer, and remove one of those layers of complexity, and minimizing the number of templates that we have, doing a lot more template sharing, minimizing our class usage, making it consistent, all of those sorts of things we're still working on incorporating into Backdrop itself. And that issue is issue 125, if anyone out there is interested in helping work on it. We also have some sections in our weekly meetings. Every week we talk about if we have any updates from the project management committee. The project management committee currently consists of simply Jen and myself, and we don't have any outstanding items this week regarding like conflict resolution or decision making or anything like that. We are always looking for additional members to help run the project, both as committers and as members of the PMC. So if anyone is out there that is interested in working on Backdrop, then just get involved in the issue queue or contact Jen or I, and we'd love to talk to you. Okay, besides the software itself, we've got a number of peripheral items that we like to talk about every week. And these peripherals are basically infrastructure things that we need to support the overall software project. Although we're using GitHub for version control and for issue management and things like that, there are a large number of peripheral sites out there that Drupal has that we will need to have some equivalent to as we get closer to release. Several of those include an API website, so api.backdropcms.org. We've got some volunteers to work on that, but they haven't gotten it rolled out yet, but we're moving forward on setting up an API website, and that's where we're going to be putting all of our change records as changes happen in the code itself. When Backdrop 1.0 is released, we need an update server to make it so that the installations of Backdrop out there can connect to the update server to see if new versions of modules are available and a new version of Backdrop itself. And so we're working on setting that up as part of our main infrastructure site. And speaking of updates, we need a way to actually collect and list all of the available modules for Backdrop in a central location. Our current plan for that is leveraging GitHub, essentially. GitHub would be where the code is hosted and where issue queues would live. But then having GitHub register through a GitHub service with backdropcms.org itself to build a list of all officially supported modules on backdropcms.org itself. So we would basically still have a module browsing and downloading capability like Drupal.org does, but all of the code itself is hosted on GitHub. Let's see, and the last thing is continuing to work on our flagship site, backdropcms.org. Right now we've got kind of intentionally a wireframe kind of driven website, but we've got some plans to get like a full redesign and some more branding going on the main flagship site. So we've got some designers working on that, but we've got a lot of other things to do before we decide to spend too much time on the flagship site itself. All of those other peripheral sites. Right now, the backdropcms.org does what it needs to do in terms of information, but we need to start working on building it out so that it supports things like the update server and contrib module listings and things like that. So we have sprints every Thursday. That's today. After the weekly meeting, so I'm going to be in the queue working away, continuing to do some backports as well as blocks and layouts. But if anybody is interested in helping with Backdrop, I'll be in IRC today, and I'd be more than happy to point you guys in the right direction. Let's see, we're always in IRC on Freenode in #Backdrop, and later next month, we're also going to be at DrupalCorn in Des Moines, Iowa. Jen and I are both going to be there. We're going to be doing a keynote talk. And we're both also going to be at the Twin Cities Drupal Camp in August 7th through 10th. So if you're interested in meeting up with some of the people from Backdrop, we're going to be at a couple of Drupal events here in the near future. Let's see. We've got a couple other things for publicity. We recently included an article in Drupal Watchdog. If you flip through all of the 50 pages of Drupal 8 articles, at the very end of the magazine there is an article on Backdrop, just kind of as a contrast to talk about what Backdrop's goals are and what we're interested in doing. If you've been joining these meetings, you probably already know most of it, but if you haven't, pick up a copy of Drupal Watchdog and check out our article in there. Well, since this is pretty much a solo meeting here, we don't really have any need for questions. So thank you, everyone, for joining, for watching. I see that we've got a couple online viewers already. Thanks. Hi, guys. And we'll be meeting again next Thursday, hopefully with a large team. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.